11, 2017. My name is Kuldip Randhawa. I live in Surrey, BC, British Columbia, a province of Canada, a nation that is considered at the forefront of human rights. I have posted a number of videos on YouTube concerning various frauds that have taken place in British Columbia. I'm sure the same is happening in other provinces and perhaps even in the States, in the United States and other parts of the country as well. What I'm about to tell you is quite difficult for me because one has to be careful when referring to videos created by famous people such as Al Gore. I have actually taken the liberty of creating this video and calling it Convenient Truth. I have considerable respect for Al Gore. I know he has done a wonderful job of trying to expose a real life problem in the global warming that's taking place. And I know there's a lot of critics, a lot of people who are stating otherwise, that what he's done is not correct in trying to discredit him. To me, he is a great person. He has attempted to do something that no one else has done before. He has approached various scientists and in trying to describe a difficult problem of the earth and how it works. It's not an easy task. We have considerable technology. We can predict earthquakes. We have scales for measuring the degree of earthquake that is taking place. We can measure ocean currents, the tides. All that technology is available. But understanding how the world is actually working from an environmental point of view, it's not an easy task, and one has to be a little bit open-minded, but in recognizing that there is an issue that had to be solved of global warming. It doesn't matter if Al Gore and some of his scientists were incorrect. It would not be appropriate, I think, for other people to criticize him in such a fashion. So I commend him for his efforts. I think he was a person that wanted to put this problem out, and I see myself in a similar fashion doing the same here. But what I'm about to tell you does not require engineers, does not require scientists. I understand that Al Gore has considerable funds available to create these videos. Unfortunately, because of my circumstances, I do not. A person of means has been converted into a person that's poor because he doesn't have access to his own funds. This is one of the ways in which a person is deprived of his rights. He is punished for speaking the truth, in the same way that Al Gore has been discredited for trying to do a good job. So this video is called Convenient Truth. In order for me to explain what this is, it is actually the reasons why the issue of global warming has not been exposed earlier. Because I think there were other people that could have come forward, but they're told not to. Out of fear of speaking the truth, they may end up losing their jobs. When a person blows a whistle, some nations do have a Whistleblowers Act, but some do not, because the fear of speaking the truth is sometimes inconvenient. It causes some discomfort, and that is the focus of Al Gore's movie. But what this video is all about is the reasons into why that problem is not being exposed, and some reasons into why a legal system of a nation is not working. What is convenient truth? The best way to describe this is to understand a legal premises called crimes of convenience. What is a crime of convenience? It is a crime which the person knows no one's gonna investigate. The person knows that in committing a crime, he's not gonna be caught. And so if you look at some legal books and some textbooks, there are examples of what this is, but I think the best way to illustrate this issue by discussing the problems of a grocery store where there's only one person who's looking after the store. The person who may have a degree, but he came from another country, and so therefore he's having difficulty running a business because he's not something he wants to do that, but he feels he has to make a living, so he buys a grocery store. In countries like Canada, there are a lot of people who are educated but are doing work which is below their level of education. I think we need to encourage that so that people can promote Canada or promote the United States so that we can compete, but compete at a level without having to cause discomfort to the people in the nation, so that everybody comes forward. And so this person who's running a grocery store, he's not doing a great job of running the store. He may have funding problems, so he hasn't got a CCTV camera, or he has one but it's not operative. And so the person who's coming to this grocery store decides to rob it, and in doing so he knows that the camera is not working, and he knows there's only one person, and so this grocery store is easy to rob. It's convenient. Consider the same thing for a superstore where there are numerous employees and there's a security guard at the door. The store is well lit up and there's numerous CCTV cameras available. The cashier would know exactly what to push. There's a button probably under the counter that can be pushed that alerts the police. And so the police comes immediately. So that does not mean to say that robbery in a superstore does not occur. But with all these facilities available, it's difficult for the robber to get away with it. It's inconvenient for that robber. And so this crime is not convenient to commit, so it's not committed. And so the superstore is somewhat protected in comparison to a grocery store. And so if you consider the situation here in British Columbia, let's take a similar situation, but now let's talk about the court system. A court system which is considered under functus officio has a duty to provide justice. There's protocols in place. There's Supreme Court rules, for example, that have to be followed. Officers of the court that have taken an oath to not deceive the court. This is not something that one has to tell them. They know, as officers of the court, that they cannot deceive the court. A judge has another oath. It's called oath of office. That judge knows that when a lawyer is before him and has actually deceived the court, then the evidence cannot be considered in that trial. And so often the proceedings still continue, and the lawyer who has actually committed a crime in the court continues with that knowledge that the judge has not held him accountable. Now the judge, in order to ensure that the proceeding continues, he may not say anything to the lawyer. So what happens in most cases, I think, is the investigation is done behind closed doors. So the public is not aware of what is taking place, and the frauds that are taking place have to be concealed, because that would result in the legal system of a nation falling apart. And then democracy is lost, is vacated. That nation under law cannot continue when it is not following its own constitution. So the primary function of the court is to provide justice, and where justice is not possible because of bias, which, by the way, a judge should know he cannot be biased. And unfortunately, we have a process here in British Columbia that the person who decides if he's biased or not is the same judge. So it doesn't make any logical sense why this person should remove himself or herself from the trial. But when a crime has taken place, they know that the law has been broken, and so it has to be investigated. And so when a person who is intelligent enough to know that what's happening here is improper, he takes the step of communicating with the registry staff. He tells them in clear English that there's a problem here. And he does this repeatedly for 5 years, which is the case in my personal case here in British Columbia. I have probably done it in excess of 5 years. And then he's discussing this matter with the sheriffs. The sheriff's mandate in the courtroom is to protect the public, including self-representing litigants. They're not there to support the fraud that's taking place. It's covered under the Sheriff's Act. Perhaps they are not aware, perhaps they're not legally trained enough. But they're told not to take action, because if they do that, perhaps they feel that they may end up losing their jobs. And so the whole situation in the court system, or any other organization where a function has to be fulfilled, is all based on the knowledge that a person is doing his job according to law. But when that is not the case, the matter has to be investigated. And the person that brings the problem forward is the one that's held accountable. He ends up losing his job, money, house, and so forth. And so, if I were to now take the example of the superstore. Let's imagine there's a superstore where the robber comes along and the security guard does not do anything. The employees in the superstore don't do anything. The cashier doesn't press the button. And so the police is not alerted. And so, despite having all the facilities available, despite the fact that it's a difficult place to rob because it's been set up in such a way that the robbery cannot take place. But it does, because all of those people, all of those security officers don't do anything. And it continues on. And under those circumstances, the superstore will be robbed. Then it would be convenient. And so this is the situation here in British Columbia. You go to a politician that's in your area because he's supposed to look after your interest. He doesn't do anything. You report the matter to the police and the police never turns up. You discuss this matter with the registry staff and they don't do anything. And then one particular day you go before a judge where the person is now totally frustrated because it's been years and years and years of trying to get through to people that this is not how it's supposed to be. And what does that judge do? He takes you down. The sheriffs take you down. They put you in a jail cell where you're not treated right. And then the property, which is the subject of the litigation, is sold. And then orders are made. And they say, Mr. X has appeared before the court, when that is not the case because Mr. X was sitting inside a jail cell. So is this difficult to understand for people? You don't have to be a scientist to understand this problem. When the crimes are not going to be investigated because the fear of investigation does not exist, then the crimes are convenient. The truth is this, that it's not going to be investigated. And so this is the focus of this movie, which is called Convenient Truth. That crimes will not be investigated, and so they'll kind of carry on. And then at the end of the day, the person that's trying to save this nation from losing its position at the international level, who wants this nation to be at the forefront of human rights. We have a world that's breaking apart here. We have some presidents who want to build walls when they should be building bridges. And so all I can say now in closing is this, that there's a certain madness taking place in this world. And most scientists who have actually provided reports to Al Gore, for example, all are aware of the laws of physics. And there's another truth that is going to be exposed right now. And that is the person that came up with those laws, Sir Isaac Newton. Sir Isaac Newton attended college where people believed in faith. He was given duties in a chapel where some of the students would come to offer prayers in the chapel. He would converse with these students who were praying in the chapel. Sir Isaac Newton had the ability to listen to his friends who were colleagues, and he had the responsibility of looking after the chapel. But the truth is this: he was an atheist. He did not believe in God. He actually told a lie. He lived a lie. Because if he had spoken the truth, he would most likely have been told to leave the college. And then the laws of physics that we all rely upon as engineers and scientists perhaps would not have existed. Or perhaps they would have existed many years later. But I can understand where Sir Isaac Newton, why he would do such an act, because he was thinking for the greater good. And it is stated in his saying, "I can calculate the motions of heavenly bodies, but I cannot calculate the madness of mankind." And that is the situation that we are in at present. I truly cannot relate to how a justice of the court, who knows that his duties are to provide justice, how that individual can possibly provide an injustice to a person who is victimized, who's coming to court to seek justice, and he's actually then treated improperly. We are aware of the residential schools, and they are now being paid compensation. Even there, lawyers are charging additional fees, money that should end up going to the First Nations because of these crimes that took place in Canada. We have another serious problem here now. It's the crime houses. The crime houses are the Vancouver courts, and the victims are suffering because justice is not being given to them. This could be based on bias, could be based on racial prejudice. It doesn't matter what the reasons are. These people are being victimized, and they're being ill-treated, and they need to be paid compensation. This compensation is additional to the damages that the person would receive if the courts were operating properly. Just as the First Nations have been given compensation, I think victims of fraud within the court system, where crimes are openly taking place, should be paid compensation that is separate from the other compensation that a person would receive if the courts were operating under law. I think I've said enough. I would want the people of this nation to come forward. I want the politicians to do a proper investigation of the system of justice here, do a review, and do it properly, with a heart, for sake of humanity, so that we can start living together and building this world so it doesn't go into a state of non-existence, because the world may come to an end if we don't correct it. Because the madness of mankind is something really beyond me. I can relate to what Sir Isaac Newton went through. With that said, I would appeal to everybody that I'm starting a non-profit organization in time. I need good-minded people to come forward. People who are efficient, who have capabilities, or simply people that can do some function that is appropriate to their level of education, so that we can work together in changing this world for a better place, so that Canada can generally be at the forefront of human rights. And all you have to do is go to the website, GoFundMe, and search justice-for all, where the 4 is a numeral 4. And if you type that in, or you can contact me by email, That's kuldiprandhawa5@gmail.com. That's KULDIPRANDHAWA5@gmail.com. And I'll be more than happy to send you a link for the funding. God bless.